Okay, think about your morning coffee for a second. Or, the car you drive. Ever stop to consider just how they got to you? There's this whole hidden world, this intricate dance of processes behind pretty much everything we use. Today, we're doing a deep dive into operations management. It's everywhere, it impacts everything, but honestly, most of us barely notice it. We think it's maybe the ultimate shortcut to understanding how the modern world actually works.
It really is. What's truly fascinating here is just how pervasive operations management is, even if, yeah, we really think about it. So our mission today in this deep dive is to sort of pull back the curtain, show you how goods and services are really produced. We want to unpack the forces shaping them and basically show you how knowing this stuff gives you a unique lens, a way to be genuinely well-informed about the world around you. We've dug through a whole bunch of sources to pull out the most important nuggets for you.
Great. So let's peel back that first layer then. What is operations management?
Fundamentally.
Well, at its core, it's about managing the processes that transform inputs, raw materials, information, even customers, into goods and services, always with the goal of adding value for the customer. Most of us give hardly any thought to the organizational processes behind the things we use every day. It's a bit like that saying, right? The fish being unaware of the water.
Exactly.
Think about your breakfast this morning. Those ingredients, unless you grew them yourself, they pass through like countless steps in different organizations to get from a farm to your table.
And that's the perfect example. Every single one of those steps, growing, harvesting, processing, packaging, shipping, that's a transformation process. Basically, any activity that takes inputs, transforms them somehow, adds value, and then provides outputs for customers. It's pretty obvious when you turn milk into cheese or butter. It's
Just a clear transformation, sure.
physical change. But what's really insightful, I think, is how operations management sees transformation happening everywhere, even in places we wouldn't normally look. It's not just about making stuff like building a car. It's also about, say, a hospital transforming an ill patient into a healthy one, or a bank transforming your data request into a secure transaction. It's a lens that shows you the hidden value creation in, well, almost everything.
Yeah, and our sources break down just how diverse these transformations are. They kind of group them into a few key types. You've got transformations involving a physical change, like we said, manufacturing, or maybe a hairdresser cutting your hair. Then there are changes in location moving stuff, information, or people around. Think logistics companies, delivery services, even a bus route.
Right, or data moving across the internet.
Exactly. And another big one is information transformation, like a market research firm taking raw survey data and turning it into a report with actual insights for a client. Or changes in ownership, storage, even changes in the physiological or psychological state of customers, like in healthcare or entertainment.
And what's often missed, I think, is that a single organization frequently has to juggle all three types of input materials, information, and customers all at the same time. Think about getting cash from an ATM. That involves your financial information, the physical currency, and you, the customer, standing right there.
Good point.
Or treating a patient in a hospital.
Yeah.
It's not just about their physical health changing. It involves all the medical supplies, materials, and mountains of patient information, all being transformed together.
That really does underline the complexity, doesn't it? So, okay, we have these big picture processes, what our sources call macro operations, like the entire end-to-end process of brewing beer. But then within that, you've got all the smaller steps, the micro operations. For the beer example, that'd be things like milling the barley, mixing the grist, cooling the wort, adding the yeast, fermentation, filtering, bottling.
Each one a distinct transformation step.
Exactly. It's that incredibly detailed level of, well, hidden activity that needs constant managing. Okay, so we've kind of defined what operations management is, but why does it matter? What's the real impact here? Why should you, listening now, actually care about this often invisible field? Well, the first point is simple. Every organization, doesn't matter if it's a giant corporation or a tiny nonprofit, has an operations function. Its basic goal is making the goods or providing the services.
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, operations management is really the heartbeat of any organization. It's all about the design, the management, and, crucially, the improvement of the systems that create whatever the organization offers. In private companies, this obviously hits the bottom line: profits, growth, staying competitive. For public sector or voluntary organizations, it's more about delivering value for money, achieving the mission effectively. But either way, operations is where most of an organization's money and people are actually deployed.
That makes total sense. Operations is really where the the action happens. If you think about the other main parts of a business, like marketing and sales, finance, HR, operations is the bit that directly creates the thing the customer pays for. Marketing's job is to make sure operations is making the right thing, the thing customers actually want.
Understanding the market.
Finance makes sure the money's there for materials, payroll, equipment, all that. And human resources. Well, HR gets the right people in the door with the right skills, gets them trained up. I mean, without HR, the operations department wouldn't have anyone to run the machines or serve the customers.
Precisely. And because operations is where the biggest chunk of a company's money gets spent, it's naturally a huge focus for top management. Our sources really stress this. You should understand your business's core transformation process, no matter which department you work in. Everything else connects back to it.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is that often the biggest breakthroughs, the real game-changing innovations, they actually come from operations. If you look at super successful companies, Toyota, Amazon, Dell come to mind, their huge success wasn't just, say, a clever ad campaign. It came from fundamentally rethinking their operations processes. New ways to build cars, fill orders, manage inventory, serve customers.
Absolutely. Operational innovation can be a massive competitive advantage. And every business is constantly wrestling with those two key ideas, effectiveness and efficiency.
Ah, yes, the classic balancing act.
Exactly. Effectiveness is about doing the right things, making sure your actions actually improve the business, add value for the customer. Are we making what they want? Are we serving them well? Efficiency, on the other hand, is about doing things well, doing them smoothly without waste at the lowest possible cost, cutting out unnecessary steps.
And there's often a trade-off, right?
Often, yes. The classic example is a restaurant. Maybe they hire an extra server. Service gets faster, customers feel more looked after, that improves effectiveness. But it also increases labor costs, which reduces efficiency. Ultimately, the goal is value, which is that relationship between quality and price. How do you add value? Give better quality for the same price or offer the same thing at a lower price? That's the constant puzzle.
Okay, this seems like a good point to maybe take a step back, look at the history. How did we get here? Because operations has really evolved over time. It's been quite a journey. Our sources point to three main phases, especially in manufacturing. The first one is craft manufacturing.
Right, the old way.
Yeah, picture skilled artisans, maybe in guilds, making things one by one, low volume but high variety. Each piece tailored to what the customer wanted. Think bespoke furniture, maybe, or a village blacksmith. Skills passed down master to apprentice. Work done in homes or small workshops. It worked fine for local markets, low competition. You still see echoes of it today, of course.
Personally, in niche markets.
Then, things changed dramatically, starting around the 19th century with the rise of mass production. This was pretty much the exact opposite of craft. The aim became high volume, low variety. Customers were expected to buy what was available, not get something custom made. The whole focus shifted to driving down costs and prices through sheer scale.
A total paradigm shift.
Absolutely. And this is where it gets really interesting, driven by three key innovations that really powered mass production. First, you had the idea of standardized and interchangeable parts, sometimes called the American system of manufacture. Instead of fitting each part individually, parts were made to a common design. Huge implications for speed and skill required.
Reduced all that filing and fitting time.
Exactly. Second, you get Frederick Taylor and his scientific management around 1911. Taylor believed in analyzing jobs scientifically to find the one best way to do every task, breaking things down into simple, repetitive steps. Workers did narrow, specific tasks over and over, which allowed for incredible speed and low costs, but wasn't exactly fulfilling work.
No, very repetitive.
Led to de-skilling in some ways.
For sure. And third, the big one. Henry Ford's moving assembly line. Ford took Taylor's ideas and put them on wheels. Literally, he brought the work to the worker, controlling the pace of the entire line. This let Ford churn out massive volumes of standardized Model Ts using relatively unskilled labor, and the costs just plummeted.
And that model, high volume, low variety, standardized work, it dominated for decades. It worked incredibly well as long as markets were stable and predictable. But then, starting around the 1970s, things started to shift again. Markets became much more fragmented, product life cycles got way shorter, consumers started demanding more choice, more customization.
Yeah, the game changed.
It really did. And this led to a huge challenge, particularly from Japanese manufacturers. They came along with techniques like total quality management, TQM, focusing relentlessly on quality, and just-in-time JIT, aiming to minimize inventory. and also a much bigger focus on involving employees in improvement. These weren't just small tweaks, they were fundamental shifts in thinking. Right. And now, in what our sources call the modern period, there isn't really one single dominant approach like mass production was. Instead, we've seen several influential ideas emerge. You've got flexible specialization. This is where companies focus on just one part of the value chain and collaborate in networks. Think high-tech clusters, maybe?
Requires really good coordination, strong relationships.
Definitely. Then there's lean production. This came out of Toyota, the Toyota production system. It's all about ruthlessly eliminating waste, any activity that doesn't add value for the customer. Driving inventory down, exposes problems, cuts costs, speeds things up.
The whole philosophy, really. Continuous improvement.
It is. And then, something becoming much more doable with modern tech is mass customization. Trying to blend the efficiency of mass production with the ability to tailor products to individual needs. Think Dell computers initially, or personalized sneakers now?
Technology is the big enabler there. Automation, flexible systems.
For sure. And linked to that is agile manufacturing. This emphasizes a company's ability to react quickly, to switch production between different products or demands as the market changes. Again, technology is key.
So if you look at all these modern approaches, lean, agile, mass customization, what they're all trying to do in different ways is to capture the best of both worlds. They want the high volume and low cost that came with mass production, but also the customization, the innovation, and the high quality that you saw back in the craft era. It's about being efficient and effective, flexible, and low cost. That's the modern challenge.
Okay, so that's the evolution. Now let's get into some of the nuts and bolts, the practical decisions managers face. Maybe a good place to start is the difference between making goods and providing services, because operations look quite different.
That's a crucial distinction. Goods are tangible, right? You can touch a car or a piece of clothing. Services are intangible, like getting your car repaired or a haircut. You experience it, but you don't own a physical thing afterwards.
And that leads to other differences. Services usually involve much higher customer contact. The customer often comes to the provider, or the provider goes to the customer. With manufacturing, customers rarely see the inside of the factory.
Right. Services also tend to have higher labor content, generally speaking, and much higher variability in the inputs, because every customer interaction is unique. Think about patients in a hospital versus standardized parts on an assembly line.
Yeah, that makes sense. Measuring quality is different too, isn't it? In manufacturing, you can measure things very technically, tolerances, defect rates. In services, quality is often about the customer's perception, their experience. Lots of factors involved.
Exactly. And measuring productivity is harder in services too because of that variability and the lack of standardization. Plus, manufacturer can build up inventory, store finished goods. In services, if a hotel room isn't booked or a consultant doesn't have a client for an hour, that capacity, that opportunity is just gone forever. You can't inventory a service.
Okay, so bearing those differences in mind, let's talk about setting up the operation itself. One of the first biggest decisions is plant location. Where do you actually put your business? And this isn't just, throwing a dart at a map. It's a really strategic choice.
Absolutely critical. You're weighing up a whole host of factors, where our sources call primary factors. Things like your raw material supply, how much does it cost? How long does it take to get here? How close are you to your market? Being near customers means shorter delivery times, maybe less damage in transit, lower transport costs. Plus, you might understand their needs better.
Makes sense.
Access to good transportation is obviously key: roads, rail, ports, airports.
Yeah.
Cheap, speedy, reliable. Then there's labor supply. Do you have enough people available? Are they skilled? What are the wage rates like? And power supply, is it regular, sufficient? And access to capital, financing. These are sort of the non-negotiables.
And then there are secondary factors too, right? Things that are still important, but maybe less immediately critical than, say, raw materials.
It's exactly. Things like the natural environment, land availability, water access, climate. Government policy is huge rules, regulations, taxes, but also potential subsidies or incentives. And then there are factors that affect your workforce availability of housing, schools, healthcare, entertainment. Things that make an area attractive to live in.
It's a really complex mix.
It is, and this actually goes way back. Alfred Weber developed an early theory of industrial location back in 1909, the least cost theory. He focused mainly on transportation and labor costs as the key regional factors pulling businesses one way or another. But he also talked about agglomerative factors, things that pull businesses together, like sharing specialized suppliers or a skilled labor pool. And agglomerative factors, things that push them apart, like high land costs or local taxes in crowded areas.
And it's interesting, you can still see Weber's ideas at play today, can't you? Sugar mills are near the cane fields, steel plants near coal and iron ore. You see companies setting up in places specifically for lower labor costs.
Definitely. The core logic still holds. But of course, the world has changed massively since 1909. Technology, globalization, the sheer speed and low cost of modern transport, the rise of the knowledge economy, where human capital and R&D are key inputs, plus things like branding and advertising. They've all added layers of complexity to that location decision. Now it's often about weighing multiple cost factors, labor, materials, logistics, the business environment, and assigning importance to each one. It's much more sophisticated.
Okay, so you've picked your location. The next big operational piece is the plant layout. How do you physically arrange everything inside? The machines, the workstations, the storage areas, the people. This is basically the blueprint for managing your facilities efficiently.
Right. And a good layout isn't just about looking neat. There are core principles behind it. Our sources mention things like overall integration, making sure everything works together smoothly, people, materials, machines, support services. Minimum movement is a big one. Reducing the distance materials and people have to travel saves time and effort.
Less wasted motion.
Exactly. And related to that is unidirectional flow. Materials should ideally always move forwards through the process, whether that's a straight line, a U-shape, a circle, whatever fits the space.
Right.
But you want to avoid backtracking. That's usually pure waste.
Makes sense. What else?
Effective use of space, using both floor space and vertical space efficiently. No bottlenecks or dead areas. Maximum visibility is another principle. Being able to see what's happening, people, materials, machines, helps with supervision, coordination, and safety. And finally, maximum accessibility. You need to be able to get to machines easily for maintenance, repairs, cleaning. If a machine goes down and you can't reach it quickly, your whole line stops.
This is a really practical point. And beyond the production layout itself, organizations often need to think about other facilities for their workers, don't they? Things like canteens, restrooms, maybe even educational or medical facilities on site in larger places.
Absolutely. Providing good facilities is part of keeping your workforce happy and productive. Restrooms, lunchrooms, sometimes even creches if you have enough female workers, according to some regulations. And then there's the basic maintenance of the building itself, keeping the structure sound, dealing with wear and tear, making sure the roof doesn't leak.
Yeah, the unglamorous but essential stuff. And in some industries, like hospitality, maintaining the customer-facing areas, guest rooms, furnishings, is absolutely critical to the operation.
Definitely part of the service delivery.
Yeah.
And linked to building maintenance and worker well-being are things like sanitation and air conditioning and safety. Sanitation seems basic, but safe disposal of waste is fundamental public health, preventing disease, and air conditioning.
Well, it's more than just comfort, isn't it? Proper ventilation is actually really important for reducing the spread of airborne viruses in workplaces.
That's become even more apparent recently. It has. And good air quality also prevents issues like mold and damp, which can affect health.
Oh.
Our sources really hammer this point home. Employee well-being is directly linked to productivity. While there might not always be a strict legal requirement for AC everywhere, employers do have a duty of care regarding thermal comfort.
Right.
But beyond just meeting minimums, good air conditioning has real operational benefits. Healthier employees mean less sickness absence. Comfortable employees can concentrate better, so productivity goes up. And honestly, it just improves morale. It shows you value your employees and want to provide a decent working environment.
Okay, so we've covered the big picture strategy, the historical context, the practicalities of location and layout. Now, what does this look like when you really try to optimize the flow? This brings us to something called assembly line balancing. And this, I think, is where it gets really interesting in terms of practical application.
It really is. Assembly line balancing is a core production strategy. Its main purpose is pretty straightforward. You want to assign the different tasks needed to make a product across the various workstations on the line, in such a way that each workstation has roughly the same total amount of work to do. The goal is to minimize, or ideally, completely eliminate idle time at any station.
So everyone is working consistently, no one is waiting around for the next thing, and no station is holding everyone else up.
Exactly. You're trying to smooth out the workflow. And the benefits are really tangible if you get it right. You improve the overall efficiency of the process. You can often increase the production rate, how many units you make per hour or per day. You reduce the total time it takes for a product to get through the line. And yeah, you minimize that wasteful idle time, all of which can lead to higher profits or lower costs.
Okay, let's make this concrete. Our source material has a great example. Walk us through it.
So imagine a factory making a product that requires 13 distinct assembly activities. Okay. They have 5 workers, which means 5 workstations along the line. And the rule is no backtracking work, only flows forward.
Got it. Standard setup.
Now, in the original setup, before they tried balancing, they added up the time for all 13 activities. The total work content was 350 seconds. But when they looked at how those tasks were currently divided among the 5 workstations, it was uneven. Workstation 1 took 80 seconds to do its assigned tasks. Workstation 2 only took 60 seconds. And workstations 3, 4, and 5 each took 70 seconds.
Okay, so immediately you see the problem. Workstation 1 is the bottleneck.
Exactly. Even though Station 2 finishes in 60 seconds, it has to wait. The whole line can only move as fast as the slowest station. So the overall assembly line cycle time, CL, is dictated by that maximum workstation time, 80 seconds. A new unit can only come off the end of the line every 80 seconds. Right. And that difference between the bottleneck, 80 seconds, and the faster stations means there's built-in idle time elsewhere on the line.
Precisely. They actually calculated it, the balance delay, DL, which measures that idle time as a percentage. It came out at 12.5%, significant waste. And based on that 80-second cycle time running 24 hours a day, they figured out their production rate, PL. It was 1,080 units per day.
Okay, so that's the starting point. Now the aha moment, the balancing act.
Right. The goal is to reallocate those 13 activities among the 5 workstations more evenly. They know the total work is 350 seconds, and they have 5 stations. So the ideal time per station, if it were perfectly balanced, would be 350 divided by 5.
Which is 70 seconds.
Exactly. So they looked at the tasks, the order they need to be done, and the precedence constraints, and figured out a new arrangement. And with this careful rearrangement, they managed to get the cycle time for every workstation down to exactly 70 seconds.
Ah, perfect balance. Which means the overall assembly line cycle time, the CL, is now 70 seconds, not 80.
Correct. And what does that do to the idle time?
It drops to 0. The balance delay, DL, becomes 0%. Everyone is working efficiently for the full cycle.
Brilliant. And the impact on production. Let's calculate the new production rate, PL. Still 24 hours a day, but now divided by the new 70-second cycle time.
Okay, 24 hours, 60 minutes, 60 seconds. Divided by 70 seconds. That gives you 1,234 units per day, roughly.
1,234 units. Compared to the original 1,080, that's an increase of 154 units per day, which is about a 14% increase in production.
Wow.
Just by rearranging the existing tasks among the existing workers. No new equipment, no extra staff, just smarter operations management. It really shows how powerful optimizing the flow can be, doesn't it? Rearranging activities, balancing the effort can lead to significant gains in output.
It absolutely does. A fantastic practical example of operations principles in action.
So there you have it. We've journeyed from the basic definition of operations management through its history, its strategic importance, the practicalities of location and layout, right down to the nitty-gritty of balancing an assembly line. Hopefully, this deep dive has shed some light on that crucial, often unseen world that brings us pretty much everything we use. Understanding these processes, from the big historical shifts to modern optimization techniques, really does give you, we think, a unique perspective on how the world around us actually functions.
It really does. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. As technology just keeps accelerating, right? Enabling even more customization, more responsiveness, faster changes. How do you think that fundamental trade-off we talked about between effectiveness and efficiency, how might that evolve for businesses in the future? And maybe more importantly, what could that mean for the kinds of goods and services you'll be experiencing in the next 5 or 10 years? Something to ponder.